it was nearly midnight by the time we got in. We'd been stuck out on the road coming there for about an hour and a half while they negotiated to come in here, and we were just standing there having to keep moving all the time to stop prevent frostbite. My big toe on the right big toe got frostbite on. I still suffer a bit with it. And my pal, his ear stuck to his collar and ripped his lobe off. But it never bled because it was frostbitten.
So pretty poor state everybody was in.
Yeah. And we were just standing there trying to stop from freezing. Quite a number of us suffered from frostbite in extremities, and your ears, your toes and things like that. But the Canadians, a bunch of Canadians marched up and down and made sure you kept on the move all the time. They said, once you stop, you've had it. And eventually we came in, and there was about 6 wagons in this courtyard. Several of us tried to get in the wagons, and the Canadians came out and turfed us all out and said, "You go into the barns, or you'll never last the night out." I finished up on the top floor of that barn. They lit the fire for us to melt.
I mean, what you must all remember, this was Germany. This was not Poland. So there wasn't a single Pole here. There were nothing but Germans and slave labor, the Ukrainian or the Russian slave labor. And they, of course, looked after us and helped. And I must say there were 1 or 2 German women, farmers' wives, who gave us hot water or but some threw stones and told us to sod off. So it varied very much where you got to.
Terrorflieger.
Terrorflieger, yes, terrorflieger.
Yes.
And some guards were nice, and some guards were bastards. And it was sheer luck.
So, Andy, what do you remember coming into here? Because you would have been with Frank's column as well at the same time, more or less.
Yeah, well, I at that time interpreted for the SBO, well, what's it called? Colin.
Ray.
No, not the one from Jargon. There was another wing commander, Dick Collard. And I remember being ahead of the column, not because I can march well, but because he had to be ahead of the column. And we asked the Germans what is going to happen to us, and they did not know. I mean, I wasn't particularly fond of Germans of that generation, but they genuinely did not know. The German guards marched for 2 hours and then went into coaches for 4 hours. And we tried, by the time we got here, there were people with frostbite and blisters and all sorts of things. And we asked the German guards to let some of the boys into their coaches. And some guards said yes and let some of the POWs in. Other guards said to hell with him. So it depended very, very much where you were. That was pure luck. Some coped better. I mean, I never got frostbite. Other people did. And I'm not the best marcher in the world. So it was sheer luck again. And the worst thing was really, apart from the cold and the hunger, is not knowing what was going to happen. I mean, nobody said to us, oh, another 2 days or another 50 kilometers. All they said is keep marching westwards. And if you...
Frank, can I just ask you, what was it like inside the barns when you got inside? Can you tell me what it was like in these barns when you first arrived?
Well, it was very dark. I mean, and we just got one torch to show anybody. It was just like this, I suppose, but on the top floor there was plenty of straw. Oh, plenty. They're going to say plenty of straw, about at least 2 foot straw, and you just snuggle down and wrap your blanket around the blanket you'd got with you. And
Ivo, you were also here. What are your memories of this place?
Well, I just came in and found a corner amongst the straw and just passed on.
That was it, wasn't it?
Yeah, just went to sleep.
But you remember the farmyard very well?
Not really. I remember coming in here, but I mean, you've got to remember it was dark when we arrived, and Frank says we didn't have much in the way of lights or torches or anything like that. You just groped your way around and found a corner and fell into it.
And what sort of condition were you in when you arrived? Can you remember that?
I thought I was pretty fit, really. I didn't have frostbite or anything like that.
But you must have been hungry.
Well, yeah, we were always hungry, weren't we?
Yes, and thirsty.
And, you know, it was a limit to what you could bring with you. As you know, as you know, the tins were all punctured by the Germans before we had them. So unless they were frozen, then they you know, the food would go off. But it was cold enough to keep the food preserved.
Yeah.
So Frank, you came into this house when you arrived here at Lipner.
Well, in the morning,
Tell me what happened. Why did you come in here?
well, there was a boiler, a furnace, and we could defrost our bread because everything was frozen solid. I broke my teeth before trying to eat one.
And it was down in the cellar.
Yes.
We should go and try and find it then.
Ha!
So Frank, what happened when you got down here into this part of the house?
Well, we brought out what bread and some meat down and tried to defrost it on top of the boiler so that we could eat it. Because otherwise we hadn't eaten for more than 12 hours. Because we didn't eat. We couldn't eat by the time we got here that night because everything was frozen solid.
And there were some forced labourers living down here, weren't there, in these places?
Well, yes, they were operating down here, and they defrosted the food for us.
Alfie, can I just ask you what your recollections of the Long March were?
Well, the Long March, you must remember that we were in Follingbostel at the time, and we marched westward through Luneburger Heide, the Luneburg Heath.
Where the armistice was signed later.
Where the armistice was signed later, yes. And so we did almost the same things. We went to barns and slept out in woods when the bombing was on. And there was a column of Germans about a mile away from us, and they were bombed during the night. And we were lucky to escape with what little we had.
Tell me about Dixie Deans. What are your memories of him?
Well, we first came together in a small room in Bart, in Stadlergluff 1. And he, at that time, was teaching the Frenchmen whom we had in the Vorlager, mending boots, sewing buttons, or altering uniforms. And he taught the French German because he was a German-speaking man. And he also had a knowledge of French too. So he taught the Frenchmen how to speak German.
You were with him in Heidekrug, is that right?
I was with him in Bart 1. We had a small room of 6 men, and also a small room in Stadlergluff 3, in Sargen. And then we went up to Heidekrug, and we managed to get him a little room in a hut all by himself, so that he could have a little rest from the rigours of running the prison camp.
We talk a lot about great leaders in World War II, about the likes of Bader and all of the great so-called leaders, Montgomery. How would you rate somebody like Dixie Deans as a leader of men?
Cometh the day, come the man. And he was a man for the moment. I cannot estimate what good he did, because it was so colossal, from looking after us in a static situation in Stadlergluff 1 in Bart, to the grand final when he went over the German lines into the British lines, and made arrangements for the troops to pick up the wounded from Greysack, where the 40 airmen were shot by one of our typhoons.
And what do you think made him such a good leader?
A dour Scot with a good common knowledge and general knowledge of people. And that was his main, and of course his linguistic ability, and he was there.
Many people have said that he also had a great sense of humour and that he was quite a humble man. You say that's true?
Excellent. Excellent description.
He's a great man, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I see.